And we're live. All right. All right, you guys. Thanks so much for coming out for Coffee with the Candidates Night 3. We really appreciate you guys coming. We appreciate the candidates participating. As always, we appreciate the Livingston Parish News for helping us put all this together and asking such insightful and inquisitive questions. Give yourself a little credit. Oh. But yeah, so this is night 3 of the event. So each candidate will have roughly 15 to 25 minutes. We'll get into background. We'll get into some questions from the Livingston Parish News. And without further ado, Mr. Aaron Ellis, I think you're up first. So you can come on up, and McHugh will kick it off with some introductory questions for you.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir, and good evening to everybody else, and good evening to those of you who are out there on the live video. Thanks for checking in and listening. Please make sure that you stand near the mic and talk into it. So we're going to get this kicked off first with a Go Tigers, and second, I'm glad that's out of the way, so we don't have to worry about any of that. So we're going to get into this tonight. Thank you for joining us. What we're going to ask you to do to kick this off is introduce yourself. Give us 2 minutes on who you are and why you were running.
Sure. My name's Aaron Ellis. I'm running for state representative in District 95. I'm from the Walker area, grew up in Livingston Parish, went to school in Walker, graduated from Walker High School. I am married to Jovita Lockhart, have 2 children. Peyton is 29. He works in the oil and gas technology industry. He's married. We have a daughter-in-law, Brooklyn. We have a grandson who just turned 3 this past week. We had his birthday party today, so that was a lot of fun.
Happy birthday, little guy.
Had grandparents' day at his preschool yesterday, so he's just a real joy to us. Have a daughter, Raina, who's 23. She is in her 2nd year in law school at LSU. All 4 of us are LSU graduates, so go Tigers. We're an LSU family through and through. Grew up on Lockhart Lane in the Walker area. I live on Gaylord Road, right next to Lockhart Lane now. Like a lot of us do, I live next door to my folks. My dad is Leslie Ellis. My mother's Betty Jo Sibley Ellis. They were both school teachers. My mother taught 1st grade at Walker Elementary School for a brief period of time before she and my dad decided to have a family and raise kids. And then my dad was a career educator. He's been retired for a long time. I'm a product of the Livingston Parish Schools. When I was still in high school, is when I first felt the calling to public service, and I joined the military. I joined the Navy when I was still in high school. Both the recruiter and my parents then told me, you know, son, you still have to finish school. So I did that. And shortly after I graduated high school, I went on active duty in the Navy. I was a plane captain in Aircraft Squadron VS-38. We deployed on board the USS Ranger, which was an aircraft carrier. I was in the Pacific Fleet. I'm a combat veteran of the Persian Gulf War. After I separated from the service, I came back to Walker, went to LSU on the GI Bill, worked odd jobs along the way here and there, and then went to LSU Law School. So due to the non-traditional path that I took, I was 30 years old before I finished law school due to all the other things that I had going on in my life at the time. But ever since then, I'm 52 years old now. Ever since then, I've been in business in Livingston Parish. And the way that I look at what I do is I help people solve their problems. People don't call me when everything's going well. People call me when a problem has arisen in their lives, and I help them work their way through their problems. Sometimes I can do that with a 2-minute phone call, and sometimes it's a years-long process of a deeply complicated legal issue. I feel like I'm at the point in my career now where the reason my business has been successful is because the people of this area have trusted me to help them solve their problems. And so I look at what I'm doing now as simply volunteering for public service to give back to the public who has supported and been good to me over the years. So it's not necessarily an agenda-driven thing for me. And again, at my age, it's not necessarily I'm not looking to start a new career. If I wanted to be a career politician, I needed to have started this a long time ago. This is more capping off what has been a successful career of helping the public, which is what I do for a living. So I just feel like it's a good time in my life to give back to the public that has supported me.
Well, and as John said, don't want you to cut yourself off short. You are, I believe, still the voice of the Wildcats,
Yes,
correct?
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We had our first home game last night. Huge crowd. We always have a big crowd at Walker High. I've enjoyed my time in the press box as voice of the Wildcats for umpteen years now. I don't know exactly how long it's been. I know that it's been long enough that none of the kids that are on the team now had even started kindergarten when I started being the voice of the Wildcats, and some of them weren't even born yet. So that's always a pleasure, and it's not just the kids out there on the field that are playing. The Band of Legacy at Walker High, that is such a big part of the Friday night atmosphere in Walker, along with the cheerleaders, the Golden Wildcats. All of these kids, all of these student athletes, they pour their hearts out on that field, whether they're on the team, in the band, on the dance team, cheerleaders, what have you. And it's a joy to watch these young people grow up and develop. And so many of them go on either to play sports in college or to play in the band at LSU or what have you. And so that's been a very rewarding part of some of the public service things that I do. I like to consider myself pretty civically involved, and volunteering with our schools is one of them. But honestly, that's just fun. It's just a lot of fun to do that. There are other civic involvement things that I do. I'm on the board of directors for the Louisiana Association for Challenged Adults. If you're not familiar with that organization, we have the Activity Center there in Walker. It's an organization where mentally challenged adults who have aged out of the public school system, it's a resource for them. It's a place for them to go, because a lot of these folks, you can go to you can have your loved one go to the public school system till they're around 20 or so, if they have a mental disability, and then they simply age out of the public school system. And for a lot of these folks, they're not going to have anywhere to go or anything to do potentially for the rest of their lives. So it's a resource for them that we provide educational opportunities, recreational opportunities, and some vocational opportunities. If they're able to work and they want to get a job, we'll put them to work, and they can do an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. So that's been something that's been very rewarding to me, is when I was asked to be on the board of directors there and to help those folks out too. So that's just yet another one of my different civic involvement things that I do with the public, aside from volunteering at the schools, because I'm deeply rooted in the public school system. Like I told you, both of my parents were school teachers, and I know and I recognize that the Livingston Parish public school system is literally the biggest economic driver that we have in Livingston Parish. I tell people all the time, a lot of folks like to try to compare us to, well, Ascension Parish has this or that or the other. We don't have a Mississippi River in Livingston Parish. And certainly, at least not in our lifetimes, or probably for the next 1,000 years, we're not going to have a Mississippi River in Livingston Parish. So we're not going to have that type of industry, but yet people still flock to Livingston Parish, and they do it because of the quality of life that we can offer here in the public education system is a big part of that. And I'm very proud to be affiliated with it in my tiny little way.
Okay, so lots to get into here. First and foremost, let's stick with the schools for a second. Mm-hmm. One of the parts of the job, should you be elected, when you go up to the state legislature, is that you are going to have to work to protect the minimum foundation program, MFP. Right. You're looking for funding and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. What is your knowledge of the MFP? How would you work towards sustaining that funding, which is a huge part of the school's budget? And what would you try to do to help the school system from the legislature? Well,
it is a huge part of it. I don't know every single detail about it. I know some of it is funded at the state level, and some of it is federal dollars. It's exceptionally important in a place like Livingston Parish, where, again, our school system is the biggest economic driver that we have in the parish. And then when you do a breakdown of what we get from our local tax dollars that go to the school, you look at the ad valorem taxes for Livingston Parish schools, and you break it down per student, say, versus an Ascension Parish. In Livingston Parish, we're going to break down our ad valorem taxes per student in the hundreds of dollars. It may be in the upper hundreds, but we're going to measure it in the hundreds of dollars per student. You go right down the road to the Ascension parish, and you're going to be measuring it in the thousands of dollars per student, probably $4,500, $5,000 per student that they're getting from their local property taxes, basically. And that's because, and they have fewer students than we do, but they have a Mississippi River, so they have all this industry there that's having to pay these taxes that we simply don't have in Livingston Parish. Then you go just a little bit further over to an Iberville parish that also, like Ascension Parish, has a Mississippi River twice because it's got both banks of it, and has even fewer students than that. And they're probably up around $10,000 per student that they're collecting on the local basis. But everybody's still going to get the same level of funding coming from the state level and coming from the federal level per student. So it's something that we definitely need to protect what we are getting, and we need to make every effort to get more that we can, because we have to have those dollars, because we simply don't have the industry in Livingston Parish. Livingston Parish, by and large, is a bedroom parish. It's a residential parish, and what's not residential is often timberland, which is taxed at a much even lower rate than residential. It's certainly not taxed commercial or industrial. So we need to, to protect the funding as best we can and to get as much more of it as we can. One thing that somewhat to a degree frustrates me when I'm talking to people and they talk about getting money from Washington, getting some federal dollars come to us. They're like, we'll let them pay for it. We'll let them pay. We'll let the federal government pay for it. We are the them. We are them. The government doesn't have money on its own. Government only gets money by taking it from the people through taxes. So every one of us in this room, everybody watching, we all pay federal taxes. We take our money and we stuff it in an envelope and we mail it to Washington, and then they send it back to us with a bunch of strings attached to it. So we've got to stop looking at it as, oh, we're going to get them to pay for it. We're going to ask them for some money. They are us. They're our representatives. That's one thing we need to keep in mind about public service, whether it's on the parish council level, whether it's a state legislature, whether it's the United States Congress. These are positions of public trust, and they're public servants. We work for you. It's not the other way around. You're not working to us to send us your tax dollars for us to decide how we're going to play with it. We work for you, and we need to do what's best to protect the public interest.
So, thank you. As you've walked around in your district, which encompasses quite a bit, mostly of the eastern portion of the parish, you've spoken with residents and individuals, businesses. Let's start with the residents. Previously, two gravity drainage districts were established. They could not get a tax pass, so they were dissolved and reformed as one large one. At a state level, how would you try to assist with maybe not necessarily funding a gravity drainage district of that size, but helping with drainage on that side of the parish?
Well, it is, in a sense, trying to fund drainage there. So what we have here is we have a bunch of existing drainage districts, or they might as well just be proposed, because a lot of them are drainage districts in name only, but we only have a couple of funded ones, and the funded ones flow into unfunded ones. So you get some issues there. And it's funny that when you say, as you're walking around the parish and talking to people, I can tell you, as I've gone door knocking and talking to folks out in the district, 2016, maybe 7 years ago, but it's still on people's minds. A couple of weeks ago, I went out to my mailbox and I opened it up, and there was an envelope in there, and it had a return address from right down the road from me. And I opened it up, and it was from an elderly gentleman, and I probably haven't talked to him since the flood, but it was had a donation check in it to my campaign, and it had a note on there, because during the flood at about 3 o'clock in the morning, my phone rang. But I'm like everybody else in Livingston Parish. I wasn't asleep at 3 o'clock in the morning that night. I was out helping folks out.
Sure.
That's everybody, that's nothing special that I did. Everybody did that night. Everybody was up in the whole parish. And my phone rang about 3 o'clock in the morning, And it was this lady that lived down the road from me that said, I heard you helping people out down Gaylord Road. And I said, I am. Y'all need to get out. She said, well, I got out last night, but my husband didn't want to go. He wants to get out now. So me and a few other friends walked down there in chest deep water with a little kayak, and we floated this guy out. And that's still on his mind, because a couple of weeks ago, he wrote me a little thank you note and everything, and sent me that donation. A couple of weeks before that, I was out door knocking in Livingston, and I got what I think everybody, there's other candidates here, y'all probably all had this happen too. I got I need you to come back here and look at this ditch behind my house. And I go back there with them, and I look at the ditch behind their house. I was watching one of these the other day, and I think it was Roger Wilder saying that he was door knocking in Carter Hills, which is on Jubin Road. That's the western edge of the district I'm running in. And he had people, hey, come look at this ditch back behind our house. I was out in Albany door knocking the other day. I run into Joe Erdy out there. He's running for parish council in District 9. And, hey, how's it going? Well, I just spent 30 minutes looking at somebody's ditch with them. That is huge on people's minds. So the fact that we have funded districts flowing into unfunded districts, and then completely the further east you go, unfunded from the north all the way to the south, is a huge issue in Livingston Parish that needs to be resolved. A lot of that, the legwork, the groundwork, needs to happen at the parish level. That's going to be a parish council, parish president type thing. But the money's not going to come from nowhere. And if that's something that I feel like, whether it's through the capital outlay program or what have you at the legislative level, that's absolutely something I'm going to focus on, because you can't run for public office in Livingston Parish and not have more people than not talk to you about drainage and flooding. It's just such a huge thing on here, because so many people lost so much. And then those of us who are old enough, we remember 1983. And then again, those of us who are old enough, we remember, was it 77? Yeah. So it's not like that was, 2016 was terrible, but it's not like it was an anomaly that never occurs and can never occur again, because these, once in a lifetime or once every 100-year floods keep happening every few years. So it's definitely something we need to get a grip on.
So you've already kind of hit on it. One of the questions we ask is, as you go through your district, as you door knock, as you say, get calls, emails, comments, that sort of thing, as you think about should you win and you go up to the legislature in your first year, what are you thinking about when it comes to your first bill and when it comes to the first thing that you go after in appropriations? And the reason I said you kind of already answered it is because it sounds like, drainage money would be the first thing. But again, the question, what's your first bill and what's your first, the first thing you're going after in appropriations?
Well, I guess first bills and first priorities are kind of the same thing. Obviously, getting money for drainage, already covered that, and that's a huge priority. Somewhat on the what's your first bill going to be, some of it to me is going to be getting things repassed that have already passed the legislature and got vetoed by our current governor. We're going to have an opportunity to clean a lot of things up and get a lot of things done right that the legislature has been trying. And whether it be line item or the whole thing go down the tubes, Governor Edwards has just said, nope, not on my watch. Constitutional carry is one of them. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we should have to have a law for constitutional carry. We already have the law. It's the United States Constitution. I'm a big gun guy. If you ask me how many guns I have, I'd tell you, I don't know. I'd have to lay them all out and inventory them. But I will tell you this. I don't have a concealed carry permit, and it's no disrespect intended to the sheriff, but I don't feel like I should have to ask his permission and pass a test in order to do something that the Constitution guarantees me the right to do. You have a constitutional right to vote, but you don't have to go to the sheriff or whoever and pass a test and make sure that you're going to vote correctly the way that this person in some other political office thinks you should in order for you to get this license to exercise your constitutional right. So constitutional carry is passed in Louisiana. It's been vetoed. that's going to go through, but that'll be a priority for me, and I'd certainly write that bill. But the bill's already written, and the same thing's going to be run up the flagpole. And I feel like it's just going to sail through with flying colors this time, because I feel like after this election, we're going to have a supermajority of Republicans in both houses, and we're going to have a Republican governor after this election. Could be wrong, but I feel like that's the direction that we're headed in. Another place, and this might be getting off kind of in the weeds on some things that I don't know how much the public's interested in this stuff, but the corporate franchise tax. I mean, that's an archaic business killer. It's absolutely a business killer in the state of Louisiana. We're taxing large businesses in a way that practically no other state does. And as long as we have that in place, new large businesses aren't going to look at coming to Louisiana. If you're a large business and you already have a footprint here, you may hang on for a while hoping that it goes away at some point. And you can roll in the inventory tax of repealing that along with the corporate franchise tax, because that's a business incentive killer right there too. But here's the thing, just like the concealed carry permit, the legislature, both houses actually voted to phase out corporate franchise tax. And in his veto statement, Governor Edwards actually said, yeah, I think the corporate franchise tax is a business killer and it's a bad idea and we need to get rid of it, but I'm going to veto this bill. So, when you get leaders in there that are addicted to other people's tax dollars, it's hard for them to let go of it. But I feel like that is something that will also, again, the bill's already written, and I feel like it's going to get passed through the legislature again, and the new Republican governor is going to sign off on it. So those things should help, between corporate franchise tax and the inventory tax, those things should help the economic climate overall in Louisiana. I'm a firm believer in, basically in Reaganomics, and Ronald Reagan's a rising tide lifts all boats. So if we make Louisiana more business friendly, then we're going to have better jobs. We're going to stop seeing the brain drain. We're going to stop seeing our kids have to move to Texas. I tell the story that I lost one of my best friends 20-something years ago. He didn't die. He moved to Houston. We had gotten through college. We was in our late 20s, early 30s. And this guy, he's smart. He's very, very intelligent. He had 2 college degrees in nuclear health physics, and he was working for the State Department of Environmental Quality, inspecting X-ray machines and walking around the perimeter of nuclear power plants with a Geiger counter. And that was his job with DEQ. And he was probably making $28,000 or $30,000 a year. And that was the limit on what he could do with his education and his professional experience in the state of Louisiana. He's like, I can go to Houston where they have manufacturing facilities that are making these, medical radioactive sources, and I can be their nuclear health safety person. And I can go there and I can make 6 figures. I can make over triple what I'm making here right now. And he did. And the thing about it is, he did what everybody else that leaves Louisiana and goes, whether it's, most of it is to Texas, whether it's to Texas or Florida or wherever, they say, I'm just going to do this for a while and I'm going to make me some money, but I'm going to keep my eye out back home. Well, when he went there, he was a newlywed with no children. Now he has 2 adult sons who were born in Texas, and Walker is just where Pawpaw lives. Louisiana is not home to those kids. So when people move off for jobs, they don't come back. We lose them generationally. They're gone. So we need to make a better business climate in the state of Louisiana, and a better tax climate, both for businesses and for individuals on a state income tax level. Again, there's some very successful states that don't have state income taxes. So, don't tell me it can't be done. It's been done and it's been successful. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. So there are certain situations that we can study what other places are doing, and why can't we implement that stuff here? So those are some of the things that I would look at right out the gate. Now, I will say this. a lot of people that are running for office, they like to pound the table, and I'm going to go up there and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do the other. And it's all good and fine to have that aggressive attitude of I'm going to get these things done. But when you're in the House of Representatives, you're one of 105, and then there's 39 on the other side of the lobby over there. So it takes working with people. It takes everybody pulling in the same direction to get these things done. One person's not going to go up there and change the whole system, but you got to be able to get along with your colleagues well enough. You got to be able to help them out on their local projects if they're going to help you out on your local projects. And we got to get everybody pulling in the same direction. So, that's a big part of what my first year, quote unquote, to the degree you want to call it, an agenda would be, is let's create a better business and tax climate, and also obviously in education. I'm a big education guy. If you fix the business and the tax climate, and we help out to make educational outcomes as good as they can be for our students, and we stop them from moving out of state. And then one other thing that we really got to get a grip on around here that's done nothing but go downhill the last few years is crime. Crime has become a much more major concern for people in Livingston Parish than it was even just 10 years ago. We're seeing not just petty crime either. Crime is crime, but we're seeing major crime issues now. We're seeing homicides in Livingston Parish that we used to just not see that before. And honestly, if you look at who's doing it, it's not old Livingston Parish people doing it. It's really not. You can figure these things out and look at what's going on here, but we need to get a grip on that stuff to stop the bleed over from crime. We know that Baton Rouge has a terrible crime problem, but us being in such close proximity to it, it's affecting us, and it's affecting us greatly. So we need to get crime under control. We need to get taxes and job opportunities under control, and education. And a lot of other issues are going to self-resolve at that point in time, because those are the things that are dragging us down.
Okay, you're actually just about out of time. You can take about 60 seconds to make a closing statement, or I can ask you one more question.
Shoot.
One more question. All right. You discussed things like personal income and franchise tax on the taxation side, but you talked about making Louisiana more business friendly. Mm-hmm. And certain extent, sort of sub part of that is stopping the brain drain. Mm-hmm. Taking those together, you discussed 2 points of tax. What are 2 points of sort of business legislation and stopping the brain drain that you can come up with to try to stem that tide?
Well, I think the two big things of the corporate franchise tax and the inventory tax will help keep, one, businesses that are already here from fleeing, because when I say people, in a sense, it's not necessarily individual people, but when you're talking at the large corporate level, you've heard the saying, people can vote with their feet. They will literally pack up and leave. They will leave the state of Louisiana. You've seen it historically happen that major industries will leave the state of Louisiana. Like, say, Freeport-McMoran. You remember what a huge, tremendous footprint they had there from Louisiana. That company came from nothing and was built up in Louisiana. It was headquartered in New Orleans forever. And then the business climate became so unfriendly in Louisiana. They're like, we're going to move down the road to Houston. We're closing up shop around here. So again, it's we got to get things like that under control, and we will provide better jobs. When you provide better jobs, then the people that are paying, when it comes right down to it, only individuals actually pay taxes. If it's a tax that a corporation has to pay, they're going to pass the savings along to you. It's they're going to do their best to not let it affect their bottom line. So when they're passing the savings along to you, then just day-to-day life makes it cost more for you. So if we can get those situations under control to get a better job climate, then you have less taxes on the front end there. And then you're actually, by having people pay a lesser percentage of taxes, but they're making more money and they're investing in more things in their personal lives, that's going to be a boon to the economy as well. Instead of having somebody who's living paycheck to paycheck and that's all they're doing is they're just able to support their family at a subsistence level, versus, well, they're going to build a new house, or they're going to put in a swimming pool, or they're going to send their kids to college, things of that nature.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate you taking the time. If you will give us your name, what you're running for again, and how folks can get in touch with you.
Yes, sir. Aaron Ellis. I'm running for state representative in District 95. Geographically, the district runs from Jubin Road in the west all the way to I-55 in the east. It runs down south of Highway 42 across the southern part of the parish and all the way up to St. Helena Parish. About 90% of it geographically is in Livingston Parish. A tiny little bit of it is in Tangipahoa Parish, right around the Baptist area in between Albany and I-55 going over to Hammond. You can get a hold of me by calling me at 225-333-1361. I have a website, Ellis for State Rep. Actually, the word for written out, F-O-R, not the number 4, but ellisforstaterep.com. So look me up, give me a call, and appreciate your consideration on Election Day. And I appreciate y'all for having this program. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
And we